Alright guys, I'm going to be making a video I've been wanting to make for a really long time. Um, and it's just kind of on corn snakes and ball pythons. Which ones I kind of think make better pets. Um, Especially for, first snakes. Um, so I'm just going to start off with the corn snake. Um, and I've had this guy since early 2013. I think April or May. Um, and he's almost a year old now, probably 10, 11 months. Um, and I mean, you can see he's really calm and tame. He's a little jumpy sometimes, like around feeding and stuff, like feeding time. Um, but that's about it. I don't handle him as much as I probably should, but I mean, you can still see he's really, really tame. Um, I have not been bitten by him ever. Um, I've been bit by most of my snakes, like, usually accidentally during feeding or something, but he's cool. Um, they're really easy to care for. Like, they don't require a huge space. I mean, the most they'll ever need really is like a 30-gallon. And that's, for a bigger one, like a full grown adult. Um, and he's still in a 10-gallon. Soon I'm probably going to get him a 20-gallon. Oops. And, I mean, he's my first snake, and he's probably my favorite snake. Still don't even really know what kind of corn snake he is. Bought him from BHB as a black Motley, but, I mean, come on, really? There's no way he's a black Motley. Like, to me, that's a normal pattern, and if you can see, he has yellow on him, so I don't really think he's a black Motley. But yeah, corn snakes, for a first snake, they're probably the best one, I think, other than ball pythons. But I mean, if you're kind of unsure about snakes, like I was, like before I got him, I was pretty scared of snakes, but I thought they were cool, and so I just decided I'd get a corn snake just to kind of see if I liked snakes, and I did. But yeah, so if you're not sure how it's going to be handling snakes or whatever, definitely corn snake is probably the best beginner snake. And I mean, I've been bitten by an adult and I didn't even feel it. To be honest, if I didn't see it, I probably wouldn't have known it happened. And that was around feeding time, so that wasn't like it being aggressive. It had just ate, and so I thought it might be getting, because it's at the pet shop that I work at, and normally we give them 2 mice, but they were all looking pretty fat, so we thought we'd just give him 1, and so I went to go put him back, and thought he was getting his second mouse, so he bit me. But yeah, I mean, they're awesome pets. I mean, some snakes, I wouldn't really consider to be pets, like, necessarily, in my collection, because they're just really mean, and they're more for the, just for the sake of having it, just to be like, oh, I have, this many ball pythons, and, I mean, it's not, I don't know really how to explain why I have some of the ones that I have. Some of them are just for breeding, just because I want to get experience breeding, and some of them I don't even know why I still have them, because they're not really for breeding, and they're kind of mean sometimes. But back to the topic. Honestly, I think as long as I keep snakes, I will always have corn snakes. He's my only one. I actually want to get more. I'm saving up money right now, and I might either buy Oh, some people yelling outside. I might either try to buy a dwarf reticulated python, um, which is definitely not a beginner snake, or I might buy a rack, a small rack, and buy a couple of corn snakes because they're awesome pets. Like I want to own things that I'm gonna actually enjoy as a pet. Um, and I think I would enjoy a retic as a pet, but it's not a beginner snake. You know, it requires a lot of time. You know, because you got to make sure you hook train it, and you have to have enough money to keep a snake like that for paying for all the food and paying for its enclosures because they grow very fast. Even the dwarfs, the super dwarfs are a little bit cheaper because well, not to buy but to maintain because their enclosures aren't going to be so big. But you got to think about the bloodline it comes from because certain areas, localities are going to get a lot bigger and stuff. So I mean, I don't know if I would rather get a couple of corn snakes or a dwarf reticulated python, but I think I might just get a couple of corn snakes because these guys are just awesome. Um, and then I'll get the ball python out in just a second to show you, but I like this guy a lot. Yeah, they're super cheap too. So, I mean, if you want one, total cost, like if you just get one of the cheaper ones, which there's no shortage of those, they're probably 20-30 bucks for the snake. If you have to buy it from online, which I recommend just getting it from an expo because it'll be even cheaper there. If you get it online, shipping will probably be about 50 bucks, and then enclosure shouldn't be more than 50 or 60 for everything. So in total, you probably spend 150 if you get it off the internet, 100 if you don't. So yeah, they're pretty cheap and they're awesome pets, man. I would definitely recommend them to anybody, even advanced keepers, because they're just amazing pets. Okay, so now we have the ball python. Um, she's a little hungry. Um, so you know, I have to be a little more careful with her because she has bit me. She's not too aggressive. She's not like aggressive. As you can see, I can pick her up, hold her, and everything. But yeah, she calms down once you get her out. Um, but she's bit me before, so it wouldn't surprise me. Um, but it didn't hurt. Okay, so people who think like you're gonna need stitches or something from someone, a snake this small, you don't. It was a tiny little bite, left little tiny holes, barely felt it. Um, but these are definitely still beginner snakes. The only difference I would really say, um, or the only thing that makes them a slightly more advanced snake, is they're a little more intimidating. Um, they're not really intimidating at all once you get used to them. But for someone who's never had snakes or never really held a snake, it is something more intimidating because, as you can see, she's a lot bigger. Maybe not lengthwise. Length, she might be close to him. Yeah, she's probably actually around the same length. But as you can see, she's a lot thicker. And her head is a lot bigger. If you do a size comparison, I have really big hands. So, you know, she's actually a 300-gram snake. So, whereas the corn snake's probably 70 grams. Um, you know, and ball pythons, they are definitely good snakes. They can be, extremely calm snakes. They're a lot slower than corn snakes, but they're just bigger. That's the only thing. They don't get as long usually. They tend to stay around 4 foot max, sometimes 5. Just depending on feeding, and females will get a little bigger. But the only difference I would really say is that just to a new person or someone who's new to snakes, they're a little more intimidating because of the size. But I definitely think that if you're willing to spend a little more money and you want a really nice looking snake, ball pythons are the way to go. I mean, I got her at an expo for 125, and I mean, the lighting's not the best, but she's a really, really nice pastel. I almost think she's a super pastel because look at the blushing, you know. She shed probably a week or two ago, probably 2 weeks now. And I mean, everyone always says it, but it's definitely true in this case. The camera really doesn't capture her color. She's a really nice looking snake. But they're definitely good beginners. I would definitely recommend ball pythons as a first snake. I mean, they're just more expensive, but they definitely look better. And it's, I guess, if you kind of want to have a more impressive snake in terms of size, then this is definitely a good one. I'm not gonna show the boa. Some people get boa constrictors as their first snake, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, boas can be they can be nice snakes, and most of the time they are. But I definitely know of quite a few aggressive boas. Out of the two I have or had, I still have one. The male was very aggressive, and the female's sort of aggressive. And I know one of the boas at the pet shop I work at is extremely aggressive. And sorry about that, if you could hear that. My sister just got home, she's bumping her music. Yeah, I would say corn snakes are a little bit better for somebody who's never held a snake. But if you've held a snake and you know, you're not like scared by it or anything, ball pythons are definitely good, especially if you know, money isn't too big of an issue, because they're a lot prettier and you can get some really nice looking ones. So I think that's going to be about it. This is something I've been wanting to make for a long time, but I just really wanted to have both kinds of snakes for a few months before I could really say, because I've had her since she was 80 grams and now she's 300 grams. So, and I also have a couple adults. So, and I had the corn snake now for 8 months, I think. So, you know, that's about it.
September 1989, I'm having a dad's weekend out with the kids, Laura and Colby. Laura's fixing to be 9, Colby's 10. We're sitting out here dove hunting. This is my single shot 12 gauge prop. So we're sitting here, it's one of those hot Texas days where there aren't even any grasshoppers moving, no armadillos, no dove for sure. We're sitting here on our little stools enjoying the day, chatting about things, and all of a sudden this 24-inch coral snake comes crawling up in front of us here. Well, I've never been scared of snakes. I know how to handle snakes. Famous last words. So I pick up the snake, I held him behind the head, and I stretch him out like this. I say, now kids, this is the most dangerous snake in North America. It's a, you know, its venom attacks your nerves. You never want to play with it. See, red and yellow kill a fellow, and I got him stretched out like that so they can pet him and everything. I said, you know what? We should go up and scare my friends, Bill and John, up at the pond. So I hold his little head up and coil it in my hands like this, and then I'm holding my shotgun like this, and we go for a walk up to the pond to scare my friends. Okay, it's a pretty good walk up to the pond, which is over that hill up there, but I still got him in my hand. Okay, so it's a pretty long walk, as you can see. By the time I got up here, John and Bill were on the other side of the pond here, and me and the kids walked up, and dove were falling out of the sky in flights of 20 and 50. So of course I took a shot, boom, I nailed one right there, and then I loaded up again, boom, I took another shot, and then something bit me. It was like a paper cut on my hand. It bit me. And so I went, oh my God, I got bit by a poisonous snake. I said, hey, I stepped on the snake. I said, hey, you guys, come here, I got bit by a poisonous snake. And they go, shut up, you just need more ammo. Because they knew I didn't carry many ammo, because I'm like only a one-shot guy. And so the kids are screaming, Laura's crying, my daddy got bit by a poisonous snake. And so they came over and they saw that snake under my foot, and they said, what are you doing carrying around a poisonous snake? I've been asked that question a million times. So we cut his little head off, and I put him in my pocket, because you know the doctors always want to know if you actually know what a coral snake is. And then Jim went charging, then Bill went charging over to his truck. Okay, so Bill comes over here and pops his hood off and says, I know exactly how to cure it. Rattlesnake handlers use those shockers. We'll just shock your finger. And I said, what? And so he pulls off a spark plug, and I let him shock me with the spark plug until there was little black marks all over this paper cut on my finger. And so then he slammed the hood down and says, okay, let's go back to hunting. I said, Bill, I got bit by a poisonous snake. I'd really like to go to the hospital. Okay, so they drove me into Fredericksburg. We drove kind of fast. Now that bite from that coral snake, it made me bleed like it was a paper cut. Felt like a really hot hornet sting, and it was very painful. But I could feel it spreading up my hand. It was spreading, it was spreading. Now I'd sucked the poison, I was holding my finger like this. I don't know if that was smart or not. But as it spread, it was coming down my hand, and it was becoming less hot and more tingly, until it got to about my wrist, and then it just kind of disappeared. By the time we got to the hospital, they put a little rubber thing on my finger and asked me, are you sure it was a coral snake? Well, I pulled that out of my pocket and said, yeah, that's a coral snake. How'd that happen? I told them the story, and they go, well, it's really not too smart to be handling poisonous snakes like that. And I said, I know. I said, you know, and they said, they checked the hospital listings and everything. There's only one hospital in Texas that had coral snake antivenom. That was in Austin at Brackenridge. And I used to be in a previous life a computer consultant, and being an independent kind of guy, one person show, sometimes you have those months where your payment to the health insurance company crosses in the mail with their rejection of your health insurance. Well, they found this anti-venom in Brackenridge in Austin. They were going to give me a helicopter and fly me back to Austin. Well, I'm feeling fine. I don't really feel like I need an $8,000 helicopter flight to Austin. So I said, no, never mind. They'll just drive me home. So that's what we did. We drove home. So by the time we get to Austin, I'm still feeling fine. I don't have any effects at all. My hand doesn't hurt anymore. I still got the little rubber thing on my finger. And it's, you know, they're mocking me pretty heavy on the way home. So we get to the house, and I call up the hospital. I said, hey, my name's Mark Robbins. I'm the guy that got bit by a coral snake. I feel fine. I'm not going to come in. And they went, no, you got to come in. This is a neurotoxin. You could just quit breathing any second. And I said, what? Quit breathing any second? Okay, so I got somebody to watch my kids, and I went down to the hospital dressed in all camo, walking in, I guess, kind of with a confused look on my face. And so, of course, the guards went on guard, had their hands on their guns and stuff, and they said, what do you want here? I said, I'm the guy that got bit by the coral snake. And I mean, within 30 seconds of hitting the door, they had all my clothes off except my underwear, had me slapped down on the gurney, wheeled into the ER, had 2 IVs stuck in, had my hands taped to boards. It happened faster than you can imagine, and there was like 40 people standing around because I was the new patient. I had something that they'd never seen before. Everybody in the hospital wanted to be part of it. And you know that story your mom always told you, change your underwear every day in case you end up in the hospital? That's a true story. Or a helpful story, let me put it that way. So there I am in my underwear with 40 people standing around me, hooked up to EKG, watching my heartbeat, my respirations and everything, 2 IVs like this, and they bring me a piece of paper. Well, a piece of paper about that thick, and they say, here, you need to sign this before we can treat you with the anti-venom. And I'm just going to paraphrase it. Every page was, if you die because of this, it's not our fault. If you die because of this, it's not our fault. If you die because of this, it's not our fault. If you die because of anything, it's not our fault. And I said, well, you know what? I'm just going to go sit in the waiting room, and if I start feeling sick, I'll come get you. And they said, look, dude, the last guy that came in here didn't have any symptoms. And that was some years ago, but he didn't have any bleeding, he didn't have any sensation. 18 hours after he got bit, he quit breathing and was on a ventilator for 4 months. Oh, I know about ventilators. So I said, okay, so I signed all the papers. I can die for free. And they came in, they had 3 bottles of antivenom. They had a diluted antivenom, 10 mils, and 2 regular concentrations. And they're going to do IV push, 1 mil per minute. Tell us if anything's going on. Well, the head doctor was sitting at the end of my gurney, and I guess he'd been there 40 hours in a row because he was nodding off as this was going on. And there's all these young nurses at me looking at me in my dirty underwear. It was very exciting. So I pushed the first bottle in, and they said, you feel anything? I said, yeah, it feels cold. And I said, yeah, we just took it out of the refrigerator. I said, okay. So they start pushing the second bottle in, and the elastic around my underwear started itching so bad. Now here I got boards strapped in my hands. I'm going to have to ask somebody to scratch my underwear. Unbelievable. Well, by the time I'm this side and I can't stand it anymore, I'm going to have to ask somebody to scratch for me because it's driving me crazy. You know, it's driving me crazy. And I look down and that doctor just pops his head up and he's got wide-eyed like that, and I'm going, oh no. And so I look down at my chest and my arms, and there's these marks about the size of a dime popping up all over me. And they start wheeling an intubation tray over, and I look up and my heartbeats are like 220, and I'm like, oh man, this is going to be a long night, you know. So I'm sitting there, and this other freaky looking doctor walks over with long hair and pins and pocket protectors and stuff. Looked like he just got out of MIT or something. Did I have a med school? And he said, oh, don't worry about it, give him Benadryl. And so they did an IV push of some Benadryl, and I was sitting there like that, and I was out. So they took me to the ICU, and I started waking up after about 6 or 7 hours, and I was kind of bored and asked for a magazine. They said, you know what? People that come to ICU are usually just happy to be breathing. They don't ever have to ask for a magazine, so we don't have any magazines. And I was like, oh. So I think about 12 hours or so, they put me in a room. And every doctor in Texas, I swear, people were driving up from San Antonio, Houston, to see the coral snake guy. Show us the bite. I said, oh, that looks like a paper cut. Yes, it does. Tell us a story. So I tell them the story. When I got to the part of the shocking with the spark plugs, man, I could have made money on that at a comedy club. They laughed and laughed until they fell down. Well, the first day, the room was filled up all day long asking me the same story. And I said, okay, we're going to do Dr. Pepper from now on. And they said, what's that? And I said, 10, 2, and 4. I'm going to tell the story and everybody can come at 10, 2, and 4. Otherwise, leave me alone because I'm tired. You're exhausting me. I need to recover from my snake bite. So, at 10, 2, and 4, they fill up my room. And when I say fill up, there was barely standing room. It was packed. Doctors and nurses from all over. Coral snake bite. They pass that around. I tell them the story. When I got to the shocking part, they laugh, laugh, laugh. And finally, I came across the doctor. Said, "Oh, that's true. The rattlesnake guys carry those, you know, stun shockers, and they shock this thing, thinking that the electricity denatures the protein of the poison." So maybe that was true or not, but whatever. For 1989, I think there was 20 people got bit by a coral snake. 20 of the stupidest people in the world, and I got to be one of them.
Back in the forest, the radio-tagged female king has spent the past 2 weeks with her mate. When another male wanders into their territory, breeding season, when 2 male snakes collide, everything is on the line. Often mistaken for a mating dance, this display is actually a form of ritualized combat. Unwritten rules govern the duel, and there's no biting allowed. Rising higher than a meter, each tries to pin the other to the ground. With a final, non-venomous blow, the contest is ended. The resident male has lost, and he must leave his territory and his mate. And to the winner go the spoils. Like all males this time of year, this snake seems to have only one thing on his mind: sex. But our tagged female has already mated and wants only to be left in peace. Unfortunately, she is about to play out a horrifying scene. At first, the new male king cobra seems to be merely persistent in his courtship, and the tagged female playing hard to get. But she's carrying another male's eggs. Is it possible he senses the rival's offspring? For whatever reason, his intentions turn from mating to murder. She is not fully immune to her own kind's venom, and he squeezes her in his vice-like jaws, pumping venom into her bloodstream. Death does not come quickly. He is her physical superior, but she will not surrender. After more than a half an hour, with every ounce of life left in her, she begins to roll. This death roll might be the final fight for freedom, or simply the final breath of life, but it signifies the end. After 45 minutes, the queen is dead. While the male's true motives for murder are unclear, he is a snake eater, so he begins to swallow her. But he may not have killed her out of hunger. Whether he's just an aggressive male on the rampage, or if some other variable led to a breakdown in the rules of the game, we may never know for sure. But the pregnant queen is too large, and he cannot swallow her. So he regurgitates her lifeless body and pushes on